toughest test of man and machine on the planet, the 2002 World Rally Championship. 14 events spanning 4 continents on mud, gravel, tarmac, snow and ice. This is a championship where teamwork is essential. Most important of all is the bond between driver and co-driver.
Anyway, well done. Well done.
Each of those 14 rallies is fought out over 3 days, with 2 world titles up for grabs for the champion driver and champion manufacturer. It all begins here in the millionaire's playground of Monte Carlo, on the shores of the Mediterranean. The rally might be based in Monte Carlo, but the competitive action takes place in the mountains, to the north and west of the Principality. Over 1,400 kilometres in total, 400 of which are the 15-time special stages, the event is run on the twisty tarmac roads of southern France, where simply choosing the wrong tyre could make the difference between victory and defeat. Snow and ice are always a factor, waiting to trap the unwary or the foolhardy, and there have been plenty of those over the years. Based around a service area in Digne-les-Bains, 5 stages made up leg 1, including 2 runs through the infamous Sisteron stage. To get between the stages, the cars travel along public roads. Richard Burns and Robert Reid arrived at the start of the stage. They're first for Peugeot.
20, right crest 40, slide to the left, 50 flat right, big cut, 30 flat left, minus in at 20, flat to right, 50, slight left.
With only 8 brief weeks since the end of the 2001 campaign, Burns hasn't had much chance to get used to the new car, and so the plan to take things fairly easily seemed to be the sensible option.
Slight left over crest 80, slight left over long crest 80, slight right, ice from here, 60, slight left, long, 60, braking, worse, long crest 50, medium left, long, 30, medium right, tightens, long.
A covering of ice meant the stage was no place for heroics, yet stage 1 was a perfect illustration of the unpredictable nature of the event. Snow and ice 1 minute, dry tarmac and a more committed style the next. Burns had forecast taking things steadily because of the ice, yet it was a dry stretch of road which saw the reigning world champion give us our first near miss of the year. And what a near miss it was.
To flat left 50, long crest and slight right 30, flat left plus in to flat right plus in, 60.
Yet luckily the car ended up on a gravel track, and so Burns was able to quickly drive on, no doubt relieved to have escaped so lightly. Only 15 seconds or so were lost, and the Peugeot was 13th quickest on the stage.
And fast right, 150, flat right and easy right in.
Colin McRae's Ford Focus was next. Like Burns, McRae was desperate to avoid an early retirement and seemed to have also been taking it easy.
And 6 left opens over crest, into bump, up to 6 right over crest, and 6 left opens, into air crest, and 3 left tightens. Into 3 right last over crest.
Slipping and sliding on the ice, the Scot was on Pirelli tyres, unlike Burns, who was on Michelin rubber. Pirelli had actually developed a brand new tyre specifically for the expected icy conditions, but the dry and relatively warm weather had caught them out too, it seemed. Dry tarmac isn't normally a happy hunting ground for Pirelli, but McRae and co-driver Nicky Grist were 3rd fastest on stage 1. The top 3 times, in fact, were all set by cars on the Italian rubber. This was just the start the pair needed, a confidence boost at the very least, an indication of things to come, more than likely. Despite changing teams, Tommy Mäkinen's confidence was sky high before the start. His regular co-driver, Risto Mäki, is still recovering from their accident in Corsica last year, so stand-in Kai Lindstrom once again deputised. Lindstrom is struggling with flu, but that didn't seem to slow the Finnish pair. Their Subaru Impreza was 2nd fastest on the stage, a clear sign that Mäkinen meant business. Gronholm was 9th fastest on the opening stage. He and his co-driving brother-in-law Timo Rautiainen also seem to be playing the waiting game. This is an event where anything can happen, remember. Harry Rovanperä won in the snow in Sweden last year, but tarmac is more the preserve of his teammate, Gilles Panizzi. The blue Peugeot was 12th fastest, but still quicker than Burns. It was left to a Spaniard, Carlos Sainz, to set the fastest time and take an early lead. Sainz and Lewis Moyer were 9/10ths of a second faster than Mäkinen, despite that slight error. So the first car to lead a World Championship round this year was a Ford, not a Subaru. 4th fastest was Panizzi, but he picked up a 2-minute 10-second time penalty. He was 13 minutes late leaving the service area following a gearbox change. Francois Delacour's first outing for Mitsubishi began fairly cautiously, 11th fastest, although the Frenchman's commitment and concentration appeared as high as ever.
195 bon. Plus gauche, frein corde du millimètre, en droite 50. Plus gauche à fond, gire, repasse d'ici, 50 mètres, gauche 80.
Stalling on the start line was a slight embarrassment to Petter Solberg, but it was followed by a slight off, and so 14th fastest was the best the young Norwegian could manage. But Solberg and Burns weren't the only ones lucky to escape stage 1 unscathed. This is the Hyundai of Armin Schwarz.
Into crest right for short, minus into left for short. 80. Double Porsche. Cross right 2 to 3 slip. Immediate junction right swing. Okay. Shop open. 80. Porsche ice left 2 to 3.
Both Hyundai drivers obviously enjoyed stage 1. Despite that scare, Schwarz was 5th, while Freddie Royce was 8th. Citroën honours were now being upheld by Sebastian Loeb, but any thoughts of driving cautiously to preserve the engine were quickly dismissed. The Frenchman was 7th fastest, but no doubt had his fingers firmly crossed. The top 6 finishers of each event all score championship points, so those places are highly prized. Skoda, therefore, were delighted with Roman Kresta's performance, 6th quickest, ahead of Loeb and the rest. And so the first leaderboard of the new season. Carlos Sainz, the rally leader, with the top 6 covered by just 13.6 seconds. Panizzi's time penalty, meanwhile, meant he had dropped to 29th place. Surely any hope of a good result had gone.
Michel Burns.
This time, though, there were no dramas. 10th fastest suggested that caution was still the order of the day, but Burns was happy enough. This was still a learning exercise, and taking unnecessary risks wouldn't be particularly sensible at this point. Colin McRae followed up his 3rd place on stage 1 with equal 2nd fastest on 3, a performance which was enough to lift the Focus into 2nd place, just 3.7 seconds behind the rally leader.
Yeah, left right 3 plus gravel, and 6 right opens. 30k, 5 left plus tightness, frost continues into 6 crest and 6 left opens over crest, into bump into 6 right over crest and 6 left opens.
Tommy Mäkinen and Kai Lindstrom shared 2nd quickest time with McRae and Grist, but it was the Subaru which now led the rally. If Mäkinen had been surprised at his pace after stage 1, he must have been astonished after 3. Marcus Gronholm was just 3.2 seconds slower than McRae and Mäkinen through the 28.7 kilometres, and the Finn now led the Peugeot Challenge. He was now up to 5th place, over 30 seconds ahead of his new teammate, Richard Burns.
150. Oikein tiukka ahdas.
After that stage win the first time through, Carlos Sainz and Luis Moya were unable to repeat that performance on the second. Power steering problems resulted in the sixth fastest time. The early leaders had dropped to third place.
Derecha que en cuarta, para izquierda buena más ojo, humedad, para derecha buena más ojo de tierra, para izquierda casi tierra poco.
After his very public stall at the start of stage one, Petter Solberg was determined to regain some of his dignity and did so in style. He and co-driver Phil Mills set the fastest time, a stunning 12 seconds up on anyone else, which meant the pair had climbed to 6th overall. Hyundai's joy at their times from stage one was short-lived. Armin Schwartz was 7th fastest on stage 3, but Freddie Leux's first rally for his new team was destined to end in retirement in the most dramatic of fashions. Leux and co-driver Sven Smits were shaken, with Freddie being taken to hospital for a precautionary check-up on an injured foot. 5th fastest on the stage and by now 4th overall were Sebastian Loeb and Daniel Elena. The pair finished a superb 2nd on last year's San Remo rally in Italy, in addition to winning the Super 1600 Championship, and Citroën obviously expect great things from them. This was how things stood after stage 3. The top 6 were covered by just under 21 seconds, while Richard Burns lay over 51 seconds behind his replacement in the Subaru team. With the earlier spectator problems now sorted out, stage 4 was able to run as planned. That, as Sainz knew too well, was the daunting Cisteron stage, the 36.7 kilometres of tight, twisty tarmac road, which guarantees a daunting mix of dry, damp, icy and snowy conditions. Definitely not a stage for the faint-hearted. It was, though, a stage which Richard Burns obviously enjoyed. 6th fastest, the Peugeot new boy had lifted himself into 7th place, 22 seconds behind the all-important top 6. Colin McRae's impressive performance continued through Cisteron. 3rd fastest, a little over 21 seconds slower than the stage winner, although a slight misdemeanour meant he dropped to 3rd place.
4 left plus over crest and care 3 left. Tight, slippy. And slow 3 left damp. Don't cut. And continues. And 3 right plus. And into 4 right, into 3 left minus, opens.
Mäkinen was still ahead of McRae, despite dropping nearly 2 seconds to the Flying Scot. Tommy's confidence, however, remained sky high. He'd already commented that he felt that he could win the event after the very first stage. Such was his happiness at the feeling of the Subaru. Marcus Gronholm edged closer to the leading trio by setting the 2nd fastest stage time. A lot's been said about a potential feud between Gronholm and Burns this year, but the opening day of the World Rally Championship had seen a commanding performance from the Finn. Time will tell, though, whether the pair will turn out to be the best of friends. Carlos Sainz had expected to lose more time thanks to that poor steering fault, and sure enough, he could only manage the 9th fastest stage time, over 42 seconds down on the winner.
Para derecha buena más, se abre.
Hyundai had seen Freddie Leux crash out on the previous stage, and so the team's hopes were now pinned on Schwartz and co-driver Manfred Heimer. Their Monte Carlo rally would end in a similar fashion to their Belgian colleagues, however. Cisteron had claimed another scalp. But the rally's 3rd competitive stage saw the 3rd stage winner and the 3rd driver to lead the event. Sebastian Loeb set the fastest time, a full 18 seconds clear of fourth, and leapt from 4th to 1st place. Citroën's day had turned from bitter disappointment to relief that Loeb's replacement engine hadn't gone the way of the others. Loeb was again fastest on stage 5, the last of the day, and so this was how things stood as the cars headed for Monte Carlo and the overnight halt. Loeb's lead is 36.7 seconds tonight, with a total of 1 minute 10.4 seconds spanning the top 6. Burns will start leg 2. 6 stages make up leg 2, with the Col de Turini used on stages 9 and 11. The rally's longest day, in fact, would see a total of over 130 kilometres of flat-out driving. New for this season is the idea of reversing the running order for the top 15 each day. Gilles Panizzi and his co-driving brother Hervé were therefore among the first crews to tackle the day's opening stage. The pair was 7th fastest through the stage, cheered on by the local spectators. Another French duo were 8th quickest. Mitsubishi had changed the suspension setup on both their cars to a dry tarmac setting, which helped Francois Delacour and Daniel Grataloup to take over 2 seconds off the crew ahead of them. Richard Burns and Robert Reid had ended leg 1 in 7th place and planned to up the pace on leg 2. After that opening stage, however, the gap between the Peugeot and the car in 6th place had grown to over 50 seconds. That car was the Subaru Impreza of Peter Solberg and Phil Mills, who set the fastest time, their second stage victory of the event.
40, 1 right minus tightens into slippy hairpin left tightens. Into slippy don't catch, 1 right, into 1 left minus. Opens 30, very late 1 right, dry. Opens 40, 3 right plus keep in into 1 left. Half long tightens, into 3 right, opens flat. 100, 6 right plus into narrow, 2 left minus. Tightens keep in.
In all, Subarus had won 3 of the 5 stages run so far. Ford, on the other hand, had won just the 1, the opening stage yesterday. After that win, Carlos Sainz had dropped to 5th place overall and was nearly 9 seconds off the pace on stage 6. Third fastest was Sainz's colleague, Colin McRae. Despite the prediction that there'd be less snow and ice today, there seemed to be still plenty lurking in the shadows, so a cautious approach was still a good idea.
50, 3 right plus tightens, 30, 5 right minus and 3 left plus, into K 3 right tightens, don't catch, into 6 left and 6 right 30.
Ahead of McRae, both on the stage and on the leaderboard, was the Subaru of Tommy Mäkinen and his stand-in co-driver Kai Lindstrom, deputising for the recovering Risto Manissimäki.
Jako oikein 2. Ja koskee lyhyt oikein nopea, K-vasen ja pitkä K-oikein. Pitkä vasen eri.
Their partnership looked to be working well, however. They were still in 2nd place and had taken a second off the leader in that short stage. The man who'd shaken the rally establishment with his 2nd place in Italy last year, Sebastian Loeb, couldn't begin leg 2 with a stage victory, but he seemed happy enough. 4th quickest was a respectable start to the day, and he still led the rally by over 35 seconds. Loeb might have been giving his fans plenty to celebrate, but the likes of Mäkinen and McRae weren't so pleased with the youngster's performance. Confirmation then of how things stood after stage 6. The overall positions hadn't changed, but Solberg was now threatening Sainz for 5th place, while Delacour was now less than 7.5 seconds behind Burns, and his Mitsubishi teammate Alistair McRae was closing on 11th placed Roman Cresta. Thanks to Virtual Spectator, this is a satellite eye view of stage 7, a rerun of the 26.7 kilometre ribbon of tarmac, which made up the final stage of leg 1. On that occasion, Loeb scorched through the test, a full 17 seconds clear of the pack. But could he repeat that performance in daylight? Alistair McRae had other things on his mind, like snatching 11th place from Roman Cresta. As it turned out, the Scot would have moved up a place by the end of the stage, but the reason was nothing to do with his pace. Instead, an astonishing accident ended Cresta's run. This amazing shot shows just how lucky Cresta and his co-driver Jan Tomanek had been. Only that telegraph pole is preventing their Octavia from plunging down the hillside. Stage 7, though, would also end in tears for others. This is Harry Rovanpera's Peugeot 206. Shortly before a collision with something solid ended his rally, forcing his retirement from 9th place.
I hit some small stone inside the curve and an uprise main arms bolts broken in a welding, and rims and tires is okay.
30's left, Frost from here to
Another
flat right
Peugeot
40,
driver,
flat
meanwhile,
right
was
60,
more fortunate.
To right damp. Damp from here 20, K left in.
Richard Burns moved into the top 6, thanks to a small error by his former teammate Petter Solberg.
Narrow fall, left minus tightens gravel, ruts, 2 right minus, tightens cut an end, 2 left minus slippy maybe. Open.
The calming voice of Phil Mills helped
10Ks,
Solberg
2 left
concentrate
minus.
on reaching the end of the stage.
Right, just think about it now. Wipers off.
The wipers, however, weren't the only things off. The Subaru mechanics would have some work to do. Carlos Sainz's team fell foul of the French scenery. In Sainz's case, it was the rear of the car which bore the brunt of the damage. Our helicopter caught the moment when the rear bumper finally gave up the job of hanging on. Fifth fastest on the stage were Colin McRae and Nicky Grist, but their Ford Focus had slipped to 4th place.
.50, 4 right, plus tightens, don't cut. And K left tightens, and now's the 3 plus, don't cut. 30, 4 right minus opens, into 6 right, don't cut, into slow 3 left, opens and tightens.
McRae isn't a fan of the Monte Carlo rally. A finish would be a welcome change after failing to score points here for 5 of the last 6 years. The reason for McRae dropping a place was a storming drive from Marcus Grönholm. Second fastest on the stage, the 2000 world champion had moved up into 3rd place.
7 ja vasen nopea suppu 5 ja vasen miinus 4 ja oikein hidas kiviä sisällä.
Tommy Mäkinen, 3rd quickest, was now just 10.3 seconds ahead of Grönholm. It was starting to look as though we were in for a real scrap between the two Finns.
Vasen täys 6, oikea täys miinus 120. Ja vasen ja pitkä oikein nopea varo kapea. Heti pitkä paha vasen ja liukas piru pitkä oikein nopea miinus.
But while the Finns scrapped for second, it was business as usual at the head of the leaderboard. Sebastian Loeb again set the fastest time. How's that for style? Loeb's 3rd stage win from 6 extended his lead to exactly 46 seconds. To give you some idea of his pace in the darkness last night, incidentally, he was only 14 seconds faster in the daylight over the 26.7 kilometres. The former gymnast has astonished many with his cool, calm approach to the business of driving against and beating the best in the world. This, surely, is a champion of the future. Stage 8 was a 23-kilometre affair, which began in a valley, skirted a mountain before crossing the summit, and then tracked along another valley to the finish. Hairpin bends were very much the order of the day, as 13th placed Marco Martin discovered, as he and co-driver Michael Park headed up the mountain. The pair was 7th quickest on the stage, their confidence in their new team and car growing with every corner it seemed. Roman Cresta had shown that the big Skodas could be made to fly through the twisty stages, and it was now down to Tony Gardemeister to head the team's challenge. The Finn, though, slipped from 9th to 10th. Like Martin and Gardemeister, was on his first rally for a new team. The Frenchman was still 7th, but lost 24 seconds to 8th placed Solberg on stage 8. Yet another new boy was Richard Burns, still 6th and edging out another 7 seconds from Delacour. The Peugeot was still over a minute adrift of 5th place though. Solberg must have been kicking himself for that mistake on stage 7, but the car had received some tender loving care from the Subaru mechanics, and so the Norwegian could afford to push once again. 5th fastest on the stage, Solberg and Mills now had Delacour's Mitsubishi in their sights, less than 16 seconds the gap. Carlos Sainz and Luis Moya headed up the hill on their way to setting the 3rd fastest time. The pair was still 5th, although the gap from 3rd to 5th was only 30 seconds, and so a podium place was still very much a possibility. In that 3rd place was now Sainz's teammate, Colin McRae.
And right items, still 3 plus over bridge, and 3 right minus, and 4 left plus time, into 3 left plus items, and right items to 2 plus, and 4 left minus open.
4th fastest on the stage, the 1995 world champion had squeezed past Marcus Grönholm, but any thoughts of grabbing 2nd were dashed when Tommy Mäkinen's time was radioed through.
Lyhyt Kuovasen sumppu heti pitkäoikein nopea plus sillalle alkukosteen.
Mäkinen and Kai Lindstrom flew through stage 8, 6.3 seconds faster than anyone else.
15 pitkäoikein nopea plus helppo. 10 lyhyt Kuovasen plus jatkuu. Kuovasen plus 15 pitkäoikein nopea.
Rally leader Sebastian Loeb was 2nd fastest, but the gap between 1st and 2nd was now less than 40 seconds once again, and Mäkinen's intention not to give up without a fight was clear. The loyal spectators, however, only had eyes for their new hero. And so to stage 9. The first of 2 runs up to the summit of the Col de Turini and then down the other side again. On paper, or even on the virtual spectator simulation, the 23.4 kilometers don't look that extraordinary, but the Turini is about passion, about history, and most of all about respecting one of rallying's most sacred of places. Gilles Panizzi, it seemed, lacked a little of that respect at times. His new team leader was just under 2 seconds slower through the stage. Considering Richard Burns is still learning the car, that was an extremely promising performance. Although the extremely disrespectful Petter Solberg was a full 19 seconds faster.
60, short 4 left, line into 6 right long of a crest, tighten short 5, don't cut. 60, line into 1 left plus tightens.
Without his earlier misdemeanor, Solberg would have been battling with the likes of McRae and Gronholm. But as it was, the Subaru driver was still looking at a top 6 place. 13 seconds now split Solberg and Burns, with 5th placed Carlos Sainz a long way clear. Knows the Col de Turini only too well and was content with setting the 4th fastest time to consolidate his 5th place overall. Gronholm was still 4th, but again a few seconds were lost to the man behind him, Sainz. Things are already starting to look very interesting for tomorrow. But the Col de Turini held its surprises for the man it's tormented for so many years. This time, unbelievably, a seat mounting broke, causing Colin McRae to try and support himself using the steering wheel. Not surprisingly, that only worked for so long. That most public of spins, right on the top of the Col, contributed to McRae only setting the 8th fastest time.
Into 5 right, bless.
For the 2nd stage in a row, it was the Subaru of Mäkinen which set the fastest time. Slowly but surely, it seemed, the veteran was closing the gap on the youngster, applying mounting pressure in time for the final day. Loeb was 3rd fastest, behind both the Imprezas and losing nearly 13 seconds to Mäkinen. It hardly seemed to bother him though. This is a man with confidence in abundance. After reruns of those 2 last stages, this is how things stand at the end of leg 2. Loeb's lead over Mäkinen is less than 30 seconds, but McRae and Sainz swapped places. Just 4 stages made up that 3rd and final day. 2 stages repeated in fact, totalling around 100 kilometres, but it seemed the row surrounding Loeb's tyre change, not those stages, would decide the Monte Carlo rally. Day 3 began as dawn was breaking, the crews and their teams greeted by the pale light of a Monaco sunrise. Stage 12 was a reversal of the run across the Col de Turini, which had caused Colin and Alistair McRae so many problems the previous night. Traditionally the scene of snowball fights between French fans on one side of the road and Italians on the other, the recent dry weather at least meant one potential hazard was missing. In the daylight, the younger McRae stormed through the stage. Alistair's Mitsubishi was only 13th quickest, however, the rear bodywork still bearing a few scars. Panizzi must have been cursing all the dramas on day 1. The car failing to start, then a 2-minute 10-second penalty means the Frenchman will be thankful to see the back of the event. Without the problems, he'd have been looking at a podium finish, but as it was, he was 8th, 4 seconds behind the identical car of Richard Burns, who we'll join for a high-speed ride up the hill.
Fast right minus tightens, maybe too easy right, long to slight right, 120. Hairpin right, damp, 60. Left, max, damp, maybe. From here, 80. Flat left, 10, fast right, narrows, 40. K right, long, tight, slippy. And K right plus long. To medium left, plus 30, braking K left, tightens, maybe.
Fastest on stage 12 was the Subaru to Solberg, another who was cursing his bad luck. A couple of off-road excursions, plus a highly public stall on the start line of stage 1, all cost precious seconds, yet he was still 6th. But what of the McRae curse?
6 left, 70. Long 6 right, 9. 50. 6 left. Keep out, 30. 4 left, minus tightens.
This time all was well, and the car was 5th fastest. Marcus Gronholm was still ahead of McRae on the leaderboard, despite losing over 3 seconds to the Scot over the Col de Turini.
oikein nopea. Ja vasen pitkä eri miinus kirraa. Oikein eri miinus.
Those eyes meant business. Sainz was the fastest, but still annoyed at Loeb's punishment. In fact, since Citroën had appealed, the 2-minute penalty had been suspended, so the matter would be decided by the sport's governing body. Sainz wasn't a happy man. Neither was Mäkinen. Loeb, running under that appeal, could still win the rally, even if the victory would be later taken away. The Finn would still need to beat the youngster, and that looked to be a tall order.
5. Lyhyt helppo vasen plus 7. Lyhyt vasen eri. 4. Lyhyt K-oikea.
Ja vähän kostee lopusta. K-vasen sisältä aukee lopussa jäätä. 9 alas.
Second fastest on the stage, Mäkinen was still in second place, but events were about to take a turn in the older man's favour. The local spectators have a new hero. Loeb looks set to join the French Rally Hall of Fame. The controversy over the tyre change is something over which the driver had no control. All he could do was drive to win.
Et attention, panneau gauche, frein léger humide pour 160 mètres, gauche moins long, tard léger humide.
Yet as the car reached the top of the col, thoughts of his two teammates' engine failures at the start of day one suddenly came flooding back.
Droite 30 épingles, pas corde, sentier humide. Et 250 mètres, gauche plus tôt humide.
Papillon, problème papillon moteur.
This Zara, however, got going again. Precious seconds were lost, but more worryingly, Loeb had no idea what had caused the engine to suddenly cut out. So, after the first of day three's final batch of 4 stages, the gap from first to second was less than 19 seconds. There'd be another fight for third, fourth and fifth places, while Burns now had Panizzi to worry about as well as Solberg. This rally was far from over. Skoda's storming early form had ended with Cresta's spectacular retirement yesterday, but both remaining cars were still in the event. This is Kenneth Eriksson, who was 13th, while Tony Gardemeister was 10th. It was still impressive stuff though, these big Octavias being flung around the narrow roads. Francois Delacour won the Monte Carlo Rally in 1994. This is his 15th attempt at tackling these mountain roads. He and Daniel Gratteloup were 9th after stage 13.
Plus gauche 70. 75 mètres, gauche à fond, 75 mètres, gauche 95 mètres à fond. 75 mètres, droite 90. Plus gauche à fond, long, long, long.
Richard Burns and Robert Reid have far less experience of the rally. 2002 is only their 5th time here, which makes their performance all the more impressive. It's well known that Colin McRae hates the Monte Carlo Rally. This year has done nothing to change his mind, despite the fact that he was second fastest on stage 13.
Slow 3 left. And right tightens to 3 minus and 2 left. And 2 right tightens and 3 left minus over crest. 30 go.
Marcus Gronholm and Timo Raitiainen were now coming under serious pressure from McRae and Grist. 14.2 seconds separated the Focus and the 206, with only 2 stages to go.
Oikein eri risteys ja vasen pitkä nopea kirraa. Huipun lopussa 7 oikein hidas kirraa muuri. 4 vasen hidas servo. 5 ja vaseri miinus. 7 oikein hidas ehkä liukas. Vasen eri. 4
Carlos Sainz was just over 2 seconds slower through the stage than his colleague McRae. The gap from his 3rd place to Gronholm's 4th was now over 25 seconds, but the Spaniards still couldn't afford to relax. Ford narrowly missed out on the Manufacturers' Championship last year, and Sainz, McRae and their new teammate Marco Martin are determined not to suffer that disappointment again in 2002. 3rd and 5th would be a good, solid start to the year, even if Sainz would like to have begun with a win. Mäkinen is another who considers second place to be just the first loser. Victory would give him 2 records, the first time a driver had won 4 consecutive Monte Carlo rallies since the 1940s, and the first driver to win 24
Ja vähän
World
kostee
Rallies.
lopusta. Koovasen sisältä aukeaa lopussa jäätä. 9 alas. Pitkä K oikee, miinus tiukka, kirraa 10, pitkä vasen nopea aukee, liukas.
Stage 13, however, would see Mäkinen's Subaru only set the 7th fastest time. With no sign of the mystery engine fault, Sebastian Loeb flew through stage 13 to once again set the fastest time. His lead was now up to over 44 seconds again.
250 mètres, droite devant et plein de sortie sec. Droite devant et plein, sortie sec.
A Loeb victory would certainly be popular, even if it's subsequently taken away again. The second fastest, consolidating the 7th place they grabbed from Richard Burns and Robert Reid on the previous stage. Renowned as tarmac experts, the two brothers had been expected to benefit from the unusually mild conditions, but events on the first day had robbed them of a top 6 finish, it seemed. Burns was only 9th fastest on the stage, still unable to match the pace of either Panizzi or Gronholm. Still, his first event for Peugeot had been relatively uneventful, apart from that well-publicised trip down a bank on the very first stage. Mäkinen had shown earlier that the stage seemed to favour those drivers on Pirelli tyres, and Petter Solberg confirmed that by setting the fastest time.
150. Slow, early 6 left keep in, into 1 right half long, tightens. 50. Early short 2 right plus, early 3 left narrow slippy maybe, opens 50, short 6 left, 20, 1 right plus, tightens. 20, narrow 1 left minus slippy, tightens, 20, 1 right minus. And short 2 left plus, damp, continues, opens into short 5 right.
7 seconds quicker than anyone else, this was yet another stage win for Solberg and Mills. The man they call Hollywood even had time for autographs at the stage finish. Colin McRae was determined to take as many points as possible away from Monte Carlo. He took 19 seconds off Gronholm on stage 14 to move from 5th to 4th on the leaderboard. At the end of the stage, however, the effort of driving at 99% could clearly be seen on McRae's face. No chance of autographs from this driver. Gronholm perhaps suffered from running over the Col de Turini and Michelins. McRae might have taken 4th, but the final stage should again favour the French tyres, so revenge was still a possibility.
7 ja vasen täys. 8 ja oikein nopea suppu.
Carlos Sainz made it an all-Pirelli top 3 over the Col de Turini. Michelin might have the advantage on stage 15, but the Spaniard's 3rd place looked relatively secure, so it didn't matter that much. Mäkinen tackled the last pair of stages in an unhappy mood. He, like many others, had expected Loeb's 2-minute penalty to have been applied, not suspended. He'd backed off and the team had changed the engine electronics to a safer setting. As a result, the Subaru was only 6th fastest on stage 14.
Vasen oikee ja lyhyt helppo vasen plus kuivaa.
That stage also saw Loeb make an uncharacteristic mistake. Despite his spin, he was still 2nd quicker than Mäkinen.
160 mètres devant mur, droite 40 épingles, backward de glisse léger, mid-sortie. Et gauchy.
Of the other battles to be decided, the fight for 7th place was an all-Peugeot affair. Gilles Panizzi was again 2nd fastest on the stage, hanging on to that position and scoring a single manufacturer's point for his team. Richard Burns can't have been overjoyed at failing to score any points and finishing as the 3rd of the Peugeot drivers on his debut for the team. But the steady run was no disgrace and means he can now concentrate on upping his speed. Maybe the Pirellis weren't too bad on the final stage after all. Petter Solberg again set the fastest time to confirm his 6th place and the first of the drivers' points.
Opens 2 minus half long.
Colin McRae was only 6th quickest, but he'd done what mattered. He'd stayed ahead of Marcus Grönholm to hang on to 4th place, and more importantly, score points on the opening round of the championship for only the 2nd time in 7 attempts. This, however, was only Grönholm's 3rd time in Monte Carlo, and the first occasion he'd finished the rally, so the 2 points for 5th place were particularly welcome. Carlos Sainz occupied the first of the 3 podium positions. His 3rd place on the stage confirmed both the ability of the Pirellis and the fact that Sainz intends to once again be a force to contend with in the Drivers' Championship this year. But what of the scrap for victory? Mäkinen set off into the stage first, unsure of whether he'd be winner or loser at the end. The celebration inside the car as they cross the finish line, however, suggests he and Kai Lindström feel they're moral victors at the very least.
Helppo oikee 100 ja serpo vasen 100 maali. Yes.
No niin.
Yes.
Siinä.
Pitkä vasen eri plus.
No niin, hyvä. Yes.
Kiitos. Onneksi olkoon.
Sebastian Loeb and Daniel Elena saw things a little differently. They were again faster than the 2 Finns on the last stage, and so felt that the win was theirs.
200 mètres, gauche 30 épingles. Gauche 30 épingles et 200 mètres. Allez, 200 mètres. Ok.
Confirmation then of the provisional result of the Monte Carlo rally. Loeb the winner by nearly 46 seconds, with Mäkinen and Sainz joining him on the podium. Encouraging results too from the likes of François Delacour, Tony Gardemeister and Marco Martin on their debuts for their respective teams. Subject to that appeal over Loeb's penalty, this is how the Drivers' Championship looks after round 1, although Loeb could still drop to 2nd place if Citroën lose out. No problem with the manufacturers' table though. Citroën aren't eligible for points since they're not contesting the entire series, so Subaru take an early lead. What a start to the season. A controversial end to the Monte Carlo rally it might have been, but the champagne tastes just as good for Sebastian Loeb and Daniel Elena. Join us for round 2 in Sweden in a fortnight's time, but from Monte Carlo, goodbye.